talking to us. This afternoon, I'm going to be sharing their deep insights. I admire academics. My mother is one. Unfortunately, I can't say something for myself, but I try. I try, and I find myself in spaces like this, and I'm being very cool. We're not going to take much of your time anymore. We had a session, and it was an amazing time as well. And I was looking forward to the second session as well. And of course, the evening, which is what I'm looking forward to. But thank you, welcome for taking out your time to be here, to our hosts, the moderators, our keynote speakers, our contributors and panelists. We appreciate you so much. We know that you could be somewhere else with something else for you here. So I'm going to say that before we go. And so I can take my beautiful place off here. I'm just going to introduce to you today Professor Shegun Ojewi, who is a co-founder of this amazing platform that is in its 16th year. So please let's put our hands together for good. Come rain, come shine, they make it work somehow. Last year we had 10 days. This year we're having one day more. We have to keep moving. The agenda has to agenda. As my Gen Z people will say, we have to keep going because the discussions we have here, things that we do here, they matter. It might not look like they do, but they actually do. So thank you very much. Once again, my name is Adike, and I'll be back there, and I hope you will have a lovely afternoon. And I present to you Professor Shegun Ojewi. Thank you.
Today's discourse revolves around the theme of the artist. Good afternoon. I apologize I cannot be there this afternoon physically, but it is with immense gratitude I recognize our keynote speakers and analysts who have poured their time, energy, and passion into this program. We are also thankful for Mr. Alake's gracious and intentional support with the extraordinary resources at the Africa Center. His discernment and determination are invaluable. We cannot forget the sterling contributions of Dr. Samantha Igbowo, a constant resource for this project. We thank you. This marks the 16th in our journey, edging us toward 2 decades in the Wole Soyinka International Cultural Exchange Program. This advocacy leg of the initiative stands as the third pillar in our annual celebration of arts and ideas, honoring our Nobel laureate, humanist, and unwavering social justice advocate, Wole Soyinka. The other 2 pillars of this trifecta include our essay competition, which awards scholarships to outstanding high school students across Nigeria, and our artistic program, through which we share creative expressions with the world. These 3 components contribute vital perspectives to Africa's dialogue with the global community. We navigate these complex discussions under this ostensibly secure banner of international cultural exchange. We do this to highlight the jarring transitions we Africans confront, moving from the violence of colonialism to the trauma and disillusionment of post-colonial Africa. In the bewildering landscape of post-colonial Africa, as we hold a Gregorian seat at the table of globalism, the so-called New World Order, we recognize that the terms of our engagement with the West have rarely been conducive to our existence. We are the suffering recipients of their sabotage and subterfuge. In our midst, while we grapple with the ceaseless sabotage of post-colonialism, there exists a stifling panic, a terror threatening to drag the essence of governance and citizenship in Africa into the depths of despair and disarray. Yet, as Soyinka reminds us, we must rise every day fortified by our convictions not yielding them to threats or the disdain of those who might seek to undermine us. We serve no religion, no tribe, no kings.
All right, thank you. Apparently, my face is blocked, so my best. All right, so just this is going to be very short. I'm going to bring on stage now my own brother. I found him here in the UK, and I'm going to hold him tight. He's never going to go. Doesn't know it. So please put your hands together as I introduce Mr. Wole.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for being at the Africa Center. I guess my first job is to welcome you to the Africa Center, especially those of you who are here for the first time. Welcome, and welcome back to everyone else. Welcome back home. As I said, this is your home away from home. And we're proud to be once again partnering with WSICE to not just honor our esteemed Nobel laureate, but also to continue his work that he has started in uplifting, elevating, and ensuring that we are embedding in cultural production the right level of intellectual rigor that is required to bring about the cultural, economic, and social transformation. Today's topic, the artist as post-colonial agents, is really, really important. It invites us to reimagine the artist, not just as a cultural producer, but as an agent for change, an agent for transformation, as a vehicle for social and cultural development. It invites us to ask critical questions of ourselves as consumers of culture as well as producers of it. In a world where most of the enduring systems that we still have to negotiate are still very much embedded in colonialism, and we're still dealing with the remnants of that in education, even in the architecture, in every aspect of the work that we do. It's very, very important that we recognize that our work is not complete until we are asserting our true identities within those areas of operation that we have to deal with. So the term the artist as activism, the artivism, as some put it, is not complete until and unless we are recognizing the post-colonial issues and traumas and necessary transformations that are going to be required for that work to be completed. And to assist us in exploring this issue today, we have for the first panel two very distinguished people. Firstly, we'll have Professor Winston Manor, distinguished professor and member of the University of Westminster's highly rated Communication and Media Research Institute, course leader for the MA Media and Development, and founder / editor-in-chief of the Journal of African Media Studies. More importantly, he's a friend of the African Center. And then we have Dr. Vanessa Wole, Senior Lecturer in Organizational Psychology and Program Director for the MSc Human Resource Development and Consultancy at my old school, University of London, so ticks all around for you there already. Also a senior visiting fellow at the Philology Institute for Africa at LSE, and has conducted award-winning research on leadership development for global context. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we are in for a very interesting conversation with our two keynote speakers, and may I start by inviting President.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you so much to the organizers, in particular, I also want to thank Samantha, and any of those it's a very important thing to center our own artists, center our own voices from the continent. I feel like an imposter, but I'm here to learn and to listen. I'm still to know a lot about Professor Wole Soyinka's work, but I was told that the most important thing to come out of this initiative is to have connected conversations, so that it's not only people from Nigeria talking about Professor Wole Soyinka. It means a lot to many people, not only in Africa, but beyond. This is what I would describe as a boundaries panel. The boundaries panels are people within institutions, organizations, who sort of merge the inside and the outside. They are sort of people, pioneers, people who break, they break boundaries. People who project science, credibility, and respectful reciprocity. And these are people that are rare, people who really foster collaboration, co-creation. So I had a book which came out earlier this year. It was honoring such people from media and communication. But from the African creative side, I would say the professor fits in very well this idea of an artist that speaks without any hesitation about being, about becoming, about belonging from our own context in Africa. I entered this conversation from an anthropological perspective. This is a perspective or a theoretical perspective that I developed with my colleague in South Africa. She's at the University of South Africa, Professor Diana. It's a heuristic tool that arose out of this confluence in Africa as a place of theorization, as a place of ideas, as Bembe would say, Africa is like a point. It's seen as the others, it's seen as a place without any theorization. So anthropology is a tool that we developed from a historical kind of perspective by a Ugandan scholar called Dan Mandela. We took his perspective, infused it with other friends from Africa. For example, I will talk about incompleteness, I will talk about conviviality, I will also talk about others. Oh, okay. My friend Lukman said he swallowed microphones. He doesn't need microphones. I need microphones. Lukman says. So in terms of anthropology, it is about understanding our own circumstances as Africans, and it is about achieving a national accountability and fostering knowledge from an African perspective. So it's about centering and delivering African business. And I can't think of anyone else the moment Professor Wole Soyinka. It was his birthday on the 13th of July. Happy birthday, Professor. But what I like most about this work is that when you read through it, it's not just one thing, several, 19 plays, novels, 3 novels, from the main poems. He has really put forward what we call collection of work that we can read several from different perspectives. Satire, critical, sort of our own circumstances. But I will talk more about that. You also have resistance that we had from a decade in the introduction. This resistance, especially against Western misinterpretation of African values, is something that I want to talk about and relate more to Afroecology in my talk today. So if you turn what I'm saying into questions, for example, if we begin to ask questions about Professor Wole Soyinka's work, we can ask one of the very obvious questions. He was the first African creative African artist to win a Nobel Prize in 1986. The question is, why did he win it at a time when some of his contemporaries were seen to be deserving? Why him? Why did they say in that citation in 1986? If ever we are discussing Professor Wole Soyinka's work, and we get lost in terms of what is it that he done, we should always go back to that citation in 1996. That Nobel Prize citation is an important marker. But of course, he would perhaps argue that I'm not defined by these external prizes. His Nobel Prize is always within his people, in this society. But somehow, it's also important to look at how other people define him. They, for example, talked about him, that he was providing a wide cultural perspective with poetic overtones, fashion, that fashion is the drama of existence. And I think when you look at his work, much of it is summarized. For example, Death of the Forest is one of the most talked about. He came from Egypt, he went back to Nigeria, and he was trying to understand, I suppose, what was happening to us at the point of independence. But then he produced others, 1972, some men died, and others. But if you read the professor's work, you can also ask questions. How is, for example, resistance and agents built into this work? In terms of morals, how is it built as an African moral imperative implicated in this work? We are very proud Africans. I decided to wear my children, set my African. I know you would say you just do your thing, you don't have to wear the color. But it's important that we also pronounce our cultural sovereignty, however we do it. Yeah. So there's a question about, how does the professor work, for example, project African cultural sovereignty? What exchange can we document and also view the kind of framing of African worlds, African cosmologies, if you want, that are not necessarily Eurocentric within this way. We can also ask about his approach to art, language, and the indigenous voice. I know quite a lot of people say, oh, he was writing in English, say, Gugu went back to African languages. But he wrote in English in a way that is very African. He infused his approach to the values and the issues. It's very, very African, very Nigerian, very Yoruba in some cases. So he did not want to pander to just, but he was full of respect if you read his work about those who are writing in African language. But he wrote in English. So he reached more people. We also, in the context of Nigeria, where there are 256 African languages and more in terms of accents dialects, you can see how it became very important locally. So language is very important, and he is led to that. Then, in terms of East African storytelling, to what extent, what do we get from this subversive, angle within his work? He was himself arrested. I think last year we watched a documentary that relived this arrest. He was very much at the center of the contestations and issues of this day, and he still is. And this is very important. As artists, sometimes we are muted. We don't talk. We just mind our business as long as we are paying the mortgage. Yeah? But the professor's work does not project that kind of perspective. So we also need to think about how this work helps us recover African epistles, and also the way it sort of influence from the Western dispensation or the Western attack on our own epistles. And you can think about the restorative aspects of the work, not just in economic ways, but in the cultural sense, for example. I want to link it more to my work on Afroecology. Like I said at the beginning, Afroecology is about knowledge from Africa. So when we came up with this heuristic tool, we said, look, this can be used by historians, this can be used by artists, economists. Thank you. So Afroecology is a heuristic tool that foregrounds knowledge from Africa, and it is very much about noting down that colonialism is not dead. I think one of the columns I heard about the title of the panel is that post-colonialism makes us think that we are already past the colonialism, but colonialism is still very much alive. So one writer, one scholar in South Africa called Michael Chapman, he argues that maybe when we think of post-colonialism, we should think about it as a consequence of colonialism rather than after colonialism. So we need to think about colonialism. I think Latin Americans and our own African scholars like Samuel Okache have reminded us that coloniality survived colonialism and is still there. I think one Maldonado Torres, he argues that it's like there in the air we breathe, it's everywhere. From Scotland with the German, the British. If you go to the British Museum now, they are artifacts. They're saying if you give them back to Nigeria, we don't know how they will look after them. That's the problem for Nigeria. So there is this very visible manifestation of coloniality, the idea that we're bold and these artifacts were brought here. But there are also many other invisible ways of coloniality. I think Chimamanda Adichie, some few days ago, asked people, how many of your children speak local languages? Why don't they speak local languages? We're teaching them French, we're teaching them English. Why don't you also teach them Yoruba? Why don't you also teach them local language? So part of the response is that coloniality survives. So it's something that the professors work direct us to be proud of our African heritage. I also like to connect Afroecology with the professor's work in terms of centering African approaches, but also fostering connective conversations. Afroecology, for those who don't know, it's very unapologetically African in the sense that it believes that for us to be successful, we need to have a pluralness of worldviews. Not necessarily to centralize ourselves, but like what my brother Tapo here says, the African way is not necessarily different, it's the right way to do it. Yeah? What is African about the African way should be seen as the right way to do it. Yeah? Not like we are saying this is an alternative that should be different from it. But what we are saying is Africans, our starting point needs to be from the continent about our needs, about what is good for us. I was told that I don't have time, but I wanted to highlight that the issue of colonialism is not over, is what I'm going to say, but it's all over. And in Africa, if you look at the Traore trajectory in Burkina Faso, it is speaking to a different kind of Africa. A lot of people are excited about that. But much of it, I would say, is a comment on the corruption, on the elites. There is internal colonialism within Africa. And Traore, what he's doing is to try to overcome some of the problems since the 1960s to provide some alternatives. I suppose Professor Wole Soyinka will be like, well, this young man from the 60s, perhaps he's onto something. Yes, there are issues, but Africa has been looking for these new ideas. I want to say that in terms of the global north, we are not saying everything from the global north is wrong. We are saying we should be selective in terms of what ideas work here. We should be very intentional, deliberate. We cannot, as one of my friends say, Nyamjo, cannot throw the baby with the bathwater. We need to select what is applicable. This idea of just bare hugging everything from the global north should be present if we follow Professor Wole Soyinka's very carefully. So I want to end by saying that it's very important to think with Professor Wole Soyinka. We can build on many other ideas that are there if we create connected conversations. I like, for example, to think with bell hooks about the margins. I like to think about with Samuel Gachen, who says the global north ideas are very tired, yeah? And they also become like obstacles to solving problems of modernity. I also want to ask questions, what is he talking about when he says that? What happens if we send African knowledge? Are we going to overcome some of the problems? So it's a lot that is at stake. I look forward to learning a lot from other colleagues. I promised to talk about incompleteness. I will mention this and then I'll shut up there. The notion of incompleteness is one of the building blocks for anthropology. Like I said, we draw from different African scholars. We drew from a Cameroonian scholar called Francis Nyamjo, the notion of incompleteness and conviviality. By that, he says incompleteness, if you acknowledge that if the global north, for example, acknowledges that what they foster on us is incomplete, if they acknowledge that their knowledge is not yet arrived, they're still working out what is good, what is not, as we saw from COVID, as we saw from, if they are very open, incompleteness becomes a strength and can be a basis to learn and to hunger for more. So when I look at the Professor Wole Soyinka's work, it offers this, it offers a new relationality. We need to relate to African epistemes. We need to think about our relationship with the outside, the inside and the outside. Like I started by saying, it's a bounded span. It's a bounded span. He is, I think, an important focus for us to think about more kind of useful forms of knowledge and forms of creativity in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I told you that treat great up something today. Anthropology. How many people here know that before today? I'm so relieved that everybody would have that. But that's really interesting. And we are particularly struck by the approach that you take in embedding Professor Soyinka's work and life those various imperatives from the moral to the subversive to the restorative, and how that programs, for example, the sex of the artist as a post-colonial or colonial agents in terms of leadership. Thank you very much. Next up, we will invite Dr. Vanessa Imoro, as mentioned, she's senior lecturer in organizational psychology and program director for the MSc Human Resource Development and Consultancy as Berber, University of London, and also senior assistant fellow at the Wole Soyinka Institute of Pathology School of Political Science, award-winning researcher on leadership development in global context, and she'll be telling us a lot more about that in terms of the artistic school region. Vanessa.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I am not as I must prepare you. So kind. But thank you so much for having me here. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and also to the organizers of this event, putting this wonderful gathering together. I count it as a privilege. It is for me a privilege to be able to share my thoughts with you. Do I need this? Okay. I count it a privilege to be able to share my thoughts with you. Thank you so much. And given the exigencies of the moment, I'll get straight to the business of the day. Thank you very much. I agree with my brother, Professor Manu, that we need not adapt the West or the global north uncritically. And that speaks directly to what I'm about to say in the next few minutes. So thank you for helping me frame that very, very much. I'll begin. Background to this. So I'll get straight to the point of the day, which is the presentation of